3.0's coming up soon. Is Phrolova gonna be left in the dust? Let's talk about it. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So, what could possibly suggest that something so absurd would happen? Well, as we know, soon we're going to be getting Linny, who is very likely to be a good second slot teammate for a majority of the Wuthering Waves cast. Of course, we're gonna have to wait until her official release and actually test her out before we can see who she's really best with, but for the most part, I do believe that she's going to be a very strong staple character in the meta. However, Phrolova's best in slot teams are quite fixed, and I personally can't see her teammates getting replaced anytime soon, and I find that intriguing. So that begs the question, if every other DPS is brought up, is Phrolova possibly going to get POWERCREPT, and is there anybody that's pulled for Phrolova recently that has to be worried? Well, I'm basically making this to say no, there's really no concern in regards to Phrolova's future, at least in my opinion, because even if she does eventually get POWERCREPT in TOA, which I do expect to happen over the course of Lahairoi, I do think that it would be impossible for us to not get a better DPS at some stage. I do think that simply because she's really good in Whimpering Wastes, we're basically never going to see her fall off there, not to mention that she has amazing supportive capabilities. Am I glazing Phrolova right now? Absolutely. Am I doing it for good reason? Also absolutely, because she is still really high value, and the thing is, while she might not be benefiting from the new characters as much as some other units, I do still think that she's going to remain as a valuable pull, all things considered. The reason why I consider something like this relevant to make is because they're rerunning Phrolova's banner right before we get the brand new big region of Lahairoi, and currently, Phrolova is the best DPS in the game, and I would be very, very intrigued if Kuro Games wasn't acutely aware of this fact. I am pretty sure Kuro probably knows how busted she is right now, and I'm really curious if they ever intended for her to be as broken as she currently is. So that begs the question, is Kuro going to try and knock Phrolova down a few notches, or are they just going to try and get rid of her completely, or what's the plan here? Because it doesn't seem like she's going to be benefiting from the new mechanics very much. The thing is, they kind of accidentally made a unit that's basically always going to be relevant in some aspect, and I personally think that her overall pull value proposition is gonna remain very high, even if we get further and further into the Tomb Break meta, and there's not really much food for echo skill damage dealers. If I were to guess, Kuro Games is probably too afraid to touch echo skill damage for a while, because they probably don't want to upscale Phrolova accidentally again. Choyuwen was mostly intended as a Galbrena support, but he also ended up being fantastic in Phrolova teams too, which gave her another upscale. So this woman is absolutely killing it right now, and I am sure that Kuro is very much a knower of that fact. I don't necessarily think that Phrolova is really an easy character to nerf, because there's not really much you can do other than add havoc resistance to the stages, or just make bosses that are really bad for Phrolova to face in particular. But considering how many good heavy attack damage dealers that we currently have, Phrolova is easily able to slot in as a second slot teammate in numerous different team comps. She is really strong in that regard. Not only is she a broken DPS, but she is able to support your teams. So, because of this fact, there is very little that Kuro can do in order to directly nerf her, and while Linny is very much providing many DPS characters with a good second slot teammate, to the point where you don't really need to pull for specific second slot teammates anymore, you're generally pulling Phrolova as a main DPS, so this is more of a cool side synergy that you can use, or just something fun that you can try out in your spare time, but it also ends up being something that's genuinely viable, so all around, no matter what your intention is pulling for Phrolova, you just end up with this omnipotent character that I'm sure Kuro doesn't really know how to deal with. I don't really think that the rise of a Tomb Break meta is necessarily going to kill Phrolova, because her own kit is just really unique, and I don't really think that there's much that they can do in order to nerf her specific positive qualities. Even against havoc-resistant content, this character is strong. There's really not much left that Kuro can do in order to nerf this unit, and even if she's not really going to be benefiting from Linny, I doubt that means that she's gonna get POWERCREPT. I mean, the thing with Wuthering Waves is that power creep discussions are relevant, because it does happen, and it would be silly to say that it never happens, but it usually happens over such a long period of time, and with a character as strong as Phrolova, I feel like it's not really something that we have to worry about with this particular type of character, to be completely real with you. I would say that if anything's in danger in regards to Phrolova, it's more so the value of her teammates, Though even then, it is still a very valuable and justifiable thing to do, to go out and get Phrolova's best-in-slot partners considering how strong she currently is, and I do believe that she is going to remain as the best Havoc DPS at the very least for a very long time. I don't think they're going to want to touch Havoc DPSs again for a hot minute. I mean, I say that, but we constantly get fusion after fusion after fusion, so maybe I shouldn't speak too soon in that regard. Kuro just kind of does whatever they want. They're kind of unpredictable in that regard. But to elaborate as to why I feel like Phrolova's teammates are more at risk compared to Phrolova herself, I feel like the character Phrolova's kit, as we have already discussed, is just always going to be somewhat relevant. There is always going to be some place in which you're going to be able to use her, and she is so inherently strong within Whimpering Wastes that I really can't see a situation in which she's going to fall off there anytime soon. But when it comes to your best teammates, they're definitely a lot more niche compared to the usual second slot teammates that we get, as while they are typically made for a specific DPS, and I would say the supports in this game are more niche compared to other games, that's just kind of how wuwa does things, I will say that I feel like a character like Cantarella in particular is especially niche. You can so easily just use Dungeon and get by fine, and the thing is, even though Linny is likely not going to be able to replace what Cantarella does for Phrolova, it's likely that she's still going to be viable with her, so when you consider that, the value proposition for her supports is just not as high. Then with Cho Yuen, nothing's really changed in that regard. He is still her best in slot, third slot teammate, but as always, it just depends on whether you're willing to invest into a more specific character like this, who only focuses on echo skill damage. And considering that Galbrina is also going to be getting access to Linny soon, it does reduce his value a little bit on the whole. Because part of this character's hype when it came to his value is the fact that he's so good for both Galbrina and Phrolova, especially Phrolova in particular, but I would say that his importance for Galbrina has been reduced. And then Roshi is a character that's historically just kind of always not really been in a good spot. She did have her 15 minutes of fame whenever Phrolova's complete premium team did first happen. However, I should add that even when she did have those 15 minutes of fame, all that really did was give people who pulled for Roshia before a reason to use Shorekeeper somewhere else. If anything, she pretty much just offered the same that Shorekeeper could within Phrolova teams. So all around, I feel like Phrolova herself is basically always going to be a useful pull. There is only a week left on her banner, and if you're still hesitating as to whether you should get her or not, I will say this. It is completely justified to skip her in favor of the Lahai Roy units. I do feel like now is not a bad time to get her, because I do think that by the time we get her next rerun, we're going to be smack bang in the middle of Lahai Roy whenever she's going to come back. Who knows when that's going to be, Wuthering Waves reruns don't typically take that long to cycle through. And there may not really be as good of a time to pull for Phrolova again, and I will say that Chisa was indeed a very popular character and a lot of people did pull for her, but if you skipped her because her meta position just isn't really all that right now, which is understandable, and you do have the spare Astrites on hand, now is not the worst time to get Phrolova. I will say, because of how good Linny is shaping up to be, if you're not able to get Phrolova and Linny, just prioritize getting Linny, as I do believe that while we do have to wait for her official release in order to test her out, I have pretty decent confidence that she's going to be a good unit, and she is likely going to outvalue Phrolova on your account on the whole. However, this is just me saying now, Phrolova is still not a bad choice, and I don't think anything is going to suddenly change that. Now, I do expect that perhaps there are going to be other good DPSs, but I think for what she does in particular, there's really not going to be a replacement for a long time. She is a fantastic DPS through and through, and she really deserves the praise. It's definitely some high praise, I'm definitely glazing the unit a lot, but it's for good reason. She's just utterly broken right now. I will say that if anything, if you're still torn on what to do within the last few days of this banner, I would say that if you already have Phrolova and you're torn on getting Cantarella for her, I would say if you can still get Linny afterwards, consider that 3.0 is releasing a very big new region, so I do imagine you will be able to stock up on Astrites for exploring. That's just my guess. I do think you should prioritize getting Linny if you're not able to get the both of them, but it's still worth investing into Phrolova, so I think that even if Cantarella is still a bit of an awkward pull, she's still going to be valuable to you in particular because of how strong this DPS is. And if you don't have Phrolova, well then just know that she is still going to be a very good pull now, and I do believe that the next time she reruns, she's still going to retain a pretty high amount of value. I would say that for as long as heavy attack DPSs are good, and for as long as she herself is good, this character basically cannot be fully removed from the meta. It's usually not good to say such definitive things about a character, because anything can happen. Seriously, a new character's release could boost another unit up to the heights of the Imperator-ordained heavens. Any unit is capable of being strong, and any unit is just as capable of falling off. So, bit of a dangerous thing to say, arguably, but with Phrolova, I am just purely confident. And I think in regards to the 2.x characters, I would seriously not be surprised, even in the slightest, if Phrolova would end up being the 2.x character that ages the best. I have full confidence in her, to be completely honest with you. Hopefully this video is able to tell you why I personally don't think that Phrolova's gonna fall off in 3.x. This has been Juice, signing out, and I'm curious to see how Kuro deals with her in the future.